Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be reading some KU horror. I don't quite know what I'm going to pick yet. I have some ideas in mind, so basically I just literally went into KU and just typed in horror and made sure that it was a Kindle Unlimited horror. But one of the first things that I will be picking up is called The Haunting of Bryn Wilder, and I actually think that this is quite popular. I was looking on Goodreads and like Gabby from like Gabby Reads and Olivia Reads a Latte read this, so it does have like a listen along option, so I probably will be doing that. I'm not very far in. I started it last night. I'm like 7% of the way through, and it's about what is her name? Bryn. Obviously, it's about Bryn. She has moved, or she's vacationing in this small town to get away from some like traumatic things that have happened over the past couple of years, and her friend invites her to vacation there or whatever. And so she gets there, and it's a restaurant that used to be a hotel that still has some hotel rooms available, and she's like one of the only summer people that are staying there like long-term for the summer. And so she's met some of her neighbors. She obviously met the inn owner, the restaurant owner, and that's kind of where we're at. I'm assuming she maybe gets a haunted object, maybe the bar or the room she's in is haunted or something along those lines. But I will certainly update you when I have more thoughts on it. So that's the intro, I guess. Hi friends, so I ended up finishing the audiobook for Haunting of Bryn Wilder or whatever. The marketing for this book is wildly inaccurate. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. This is essentially like what I would consider a fiction story about a woman trying to find herself with like very slight gothic and or paranormal elements, like ghost elements. So she goes to she's staying at the inn or whatever. She meets this guy, they have a romance. She like meets the people in town, and she like falls in love with the town, and she falls in love with the people, and she ends up having this, not like a romantic relationship, but just like this friendship with this woman who has Alzheimer's, and she is the ex-wife of someone that is staying at the inn, and they're having her stay at the inn so that she can be monitored by her ex-husband and his current husband. And there are a lot of run-ins where she says and does some weird stuff, and there's like slight haunting things going on at night, but it's literally about the heroine falling in love and like discovering herself after the death of her mother. And this has heavy discussions of Alzheimer's, which is just something that's very hard for me to deal with. I recently, as in this year, lost my grandfather to Alzheimer's, and it's a hard thing for me to read about, and it just is like the entire story is about this woman's life and how people are meant to meet each other and fall in love and be in each other's lives, and the whole like ghost aspect is like her in her previous life with this guy that she just met and is in love with. It's just like, it's just not marketed correctly. It's not horror. It's barely a haunted story. No, I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars, and I'm very disappointed. Like, everything about this is marketed incorrectly. The title is not right. The cover like could be kind of ambiguous, but the fact that this came up when I googled horror, and you go on Goodreads and this is tagged as a horror, is just not correct. Like, it's not, that's not what this is. This is literally a story about a girl who just lost her mom, who moves to a town for the summer and falls in love, and like falls in love with the town and is like discovering herself, and that's it. So I'm not happy that I read this. It wasn't a bad book, it just wasn't horror, and like that's what I'm reading it for. That's why I picked it up. So I did end up picking up Demon Rift. So this is kind of an odd book because there's 2 demon rifts by two of the same, like it's the same author with two different names. One is, it's the same story. One is over 500 pages. One is a little over 300 pages. And I don't know which one is which. Like, obviously I found the one that I'm reading now, but it's the same story. One is just like 200 pages longer. But it seems to be a short story collection or an anthology collection or something. It's something about like portals, and it says ricocheting across 3 different time periods and 3 different families, all deeply affected by the diabolical machinations of the agent. I don't know what that means. A personal battle between good and evil across decades. So this is just something that I found. We'll see how it goes. I'm anticipating that this is actually going to be a horror, which is really like the bare minimum of what I asked for when I went on Kindle Unlimited and asked for a horror. And then I also checked out Haunted Bryn Manor, which is another haunted house story. Hopefully this will actually be a horror. It is 320 pages, and I also think this is, actually short stories, because it says intense ghost stories that you can't put down, but also this seems to be a series. So I think this might be, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see going in, because this author has 2 different books about the same house, and I originally got the nonfiction version, I'm guessing, and now I have the fiction version. I don't know. Kindle Unlimited it's the Wild West of reading libraries. So that is the update. If you are looking for some horror, don't read The Haunting of Bryn Wilder. If you're looking for a fiction story about a woman who falls in love with a dude and their love transcends time, and it's a small town, like, I just don't know what the audience for it is. So we're gonna come back when I've actually read some horror and have some good things to say. Okay friends, we're gonna have to update through the light of Disney Dreamlight Valley. I finished Demon Rift, and I feel bad that this only has like 13 reviews on Goodreads, but I gave it 2 stars. Like, this was one of the worst edited, spliced together stories I have ever read. I understood what the author was trying to do. So it's like basically a bunch of different stories of like supernatural things happening. And like there's one central character that has to like excuse Donald just like losing his shit in the background. I understood what the author was going for. Like, they were trying to weave together all of these different stories, but it was way too confusing. The editing was not good enough to make what was happening like very clear. And at first I thought it was because I was listening to it, like I was having Alexa read it to me, and she sounds like a literal robot sometimes, so like it can be hard to like understand what's going on unless you're like really paying attention. But no, this is like, I read Goodreads reviews and it was just like, this is bad. Like, the editing is non-existent. The fact that there is a 500-page version of this is very concerning for me, because the 300-page version of this was a clusterfuck. And it literally just goes from like different stories and different timelines of like bad shit happening, like a mall catching on fire and like people dying, like killing each other, and it's not well done, like at all. And it makes no sense. And the writing is not good. Like, it's not scary. The descriptions aren't good. Like, yeah, I don't want to like harp too much on it. So I'm just gonna move on to the next one, but I hope that I have some like actually good picks, because these last 2 were not it. So I'm going to start the haunted story, and hopefully that is a W for us. Okay, so yesterday evening I ended up finishing Haunted Bryn Manor, and I gave it 3 stars, but I like genuinely enjoyed it. It was a good haunted house story. So it's basically about this family who moves into a house that they were left by this uncle that they didn't even know about. Some weird shit starts happening. They find some like occult things going on, and this paranormal investigator comes and says, hey, I like did an investigation of your house previously when your uncle was alive and living in the house, and like weird shit's going on. So they start experiencing paranormal activity. They have some like furnace issues where they have like an old furnace and it like screams and moans, and they start seeing people in their security cameras, and then it ends with further investigating the house. I really enjoyed it. Like, I listened to the full audiobook, or I listened to Alexa speak the full book while I was playing my video games, and it was like a very good like haunted house story. Very typical, like what you would expect from a haunted house story, but I really enjoyed it, and I think if you are looking for like a good spooky haunted house story, this is the one for you. And then I also started last night Intercepts, which is another KU horror, and it starts off very, very interestingly. It starts off with a guy who's basically being experimented on by other people, talking about how he can hear them talking, but he can't see or feel anything, or he can see and feel too much. He has hooks in his eyes, like they're doing different experiments to him. And then it cuts to what I'm assuming is like an orderly or a nurse of some sort working at this facility, and all I know is it has to do with like human experiments, so I'm very excited for that one. And then I also started The Hollows, and by the started I mean I literally just opened it so that my Kindle will mark it as being read on Goodreads. But I think this one is about like haunted woods or something like that. I'm not quite sure what it is about, but it has like the read and listen along, so I'm gonna be listening to the audiobook today. I'm pretty confident that these two are going to be wins, because Intercepts already has started out pretty strong, and Mark Edwards seems to be a pretty like popular author. We're gonna talk while I'm making my lunch. So earlier today I finished The Hollows, and I gave this 3 stars, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. It's about this guy. It's told in 2 points of view. It's about this guy who goes on a vacation with his daughter. He lives in the UK. She lives in America with her mom. And they go on a vacation together to this place in Maine that is like unwittingly, or unbeknownst to them rather, is this like site of this really gruesome double murder that all of the like crime community are like fascinated with, and it's like a tourist spot like for the dark tourists. They go and stay in this cabin that is like, it's essentially like a, like if you've ever seen those places that have like multiple cabins but they're like outside, and they meet this like crime junkie family or whatever, and they have the son that his daughter is like they become fast friends or whatever, and they discover that this place that they're staying at, like a couple of decades ago, there was this double murder that happened, and they never caught the person that did it. Like, he went on the run and they never found him, but they think that he still lives in the woods that like surround the cabin. They are just like on vacation or whatever, and this group, like this whole group of like dark tourists are there, like looking into the murder and like going to the murder scene and all that kind of stuff. And they're just trying to like be on vacation, and then this weird shit starts happening. Like stuff starts going missing. One woman dies because her medication goes missing, and they're simultaneously having these like very weird interactions with the people that are in the town of, it's called Penance. So they're having like these very weird interactions, and her the dude that his daughter is friends with, like made fast friends with, posts a picture on Instagram with the caption of like, basically, this town is a shithole. And it starts up all this hate to them online, and it's a bunch of like the residents of the town basically like giving, like spamming death threats and stuff. And so all this like weird creepy stuff is going on while you're finding out the history of this murder. And then you're also getting, so you're getting like the son and like the father and daughter points of view, and then you're also getting the point of view of a teenager that was like, they got embroiled with this woman who was basically like leading a cult. She was like significantly older than them. She was like 40, and they were like teenagers in high school, and they had this very odd friendship. So it's very much slasher-esque. Like if you are a fan of like Friday the 13th and like movies like that or stories like that, you'll really enjoy this. It's just a good little like slasher-esque book that was like a fun listen. I wouldn't say it's like too horror-y. It's more of like the mystery side of a slasher, if that makes sense. And then I got 25% of the way through Intercepts, and this is gonna be an odd thing to say, but Alexa is actually making this like way creepier than it might be if I was reading this physically, because like her little robotic voice is just not, it's helping the atmosphere of like this human torture chamber that is going on. So in the opening couple of prologues, there's like 2 opening chapters, and in one of the opening chapters there is an employee of the facility, and he gets brutally murdered by one of the women. He goes in, like he's basically the like, he cleans the patients, so he like changes their diapers because they're all essentially catatonic, and he like bathes them, and he doesn't strap one of the patients down while he's cleaning her, and she like brutalizes him. She literally tears his spine out and is like digging in his body until she reaches the floor. Like he's laying on the floor, she gets on top of him and tears like his whole body apart, like just through his spine and everything. And she eventually gets restrained, and then we flash to the point of view of like the director, I'm assuming, of the facility, and he's like trying to figure out why this happened. He is like watching back the footage and all that, and it's very secretive. Like we don't really get a whole lot into like what the experiments are. We see some of the patients, and we know that like it's very typical for the patients to not talk, to really just like scream and be like in their beds, not be able to like walk and interact with people. But we don't really know like what the experiments themselves are. He gets a call while he's at work that his ex-wife and the mother of his child has committed suicide, and so he has to go pick up his daughter from school. And she sees a woman in white on the side of the road, and she like freaks out or whatever, and then her father doesn't see the woman, and then they get to his house, and she like goes in the house first. He's like doing something outside, and so she gets in the house first, and she sees the same woman in the hallway, and so she's like, okay, well, we need to call the police or whatever. And he says, my job has very strict protocol about what we can do when things like this happen, so I need to call them. And so he calls this security company from his job, and like everybody in town knows not to question this company, not to like get in their way. And so the security company shows up, they do an investigation of the property, and they don't find anything. They don't find the woman, and they basically convince her, I have to do even more because Gotham is just gonna rub against my tripod. Yes, that's the angle we love. Okay. Yep, that's where we are. So he calls in the security company, they go through the house, they don't see anything. They basically convince her that like nothing happened and she's fine. And she's like, okay, well, the woman that I saw, she tells her dad this, the woman that I saw was ripping her own flesh off. And her dad's like, nah, it's fine, like you had a rough day, like it's probably nothing. So where I left off, he has to go into the facility to address the thing that happened with his patient, and he leaves her at home. So I'm intrigued by where this is going. I'm interested to see like what all of the experiments and shit is. Experimentation on the populace is like not a new thing for our government. So I'm interested to see if it's like an MK Ultra thing, like if is it a play on MK Ultra, like what is it? Writing wise, because like I'm listening, like let me play for you what it sounds like when Alexa reads to me, because for one, I listen on what would the equivalent would probably be like 2.5 speed.
Mr. Aguirre looked down at his tablet. He opened some files and swiped around, searching for something. You have a daughter, correct? Riley Gerhard? He asked. Yep. And how old is she now? Joe tried to maintain his pleasant smile, but he felt the muscles and tendons in his face become strained. His posture stiffened. His hands, resting on his desk, sought out each other and formed a tight steeple. He knew Mr. Aguirre wasn't making pleasant conversation. 16 now. 17 in August. Riley lived almost exclusively with her mother.
So she sounds like a robot, but almost like uncanny valley enough that she sounds almost human. So it's kind of creepy. It kind of fits the like atmosphere and the like, yeah, it's working for me. So I'm going to continue listening to it, and I'll update you when I have some thoughts. I probably won't update you again until I'm finished, just because like there isn't too much to say about, you know, stories like this. So I'm gonna get back to it, and we will talk when I am done. Okay friends, I have finished the last book for this video, and let's talk about it. So I finished Intercepts, and despite going on about how much I was enjoying this book and being quite into it in my initial update at the 25% mark, it kind of went downhill from there. It became a story that I wasn't as enamored with. It mostly became about the haunting of her daughter in revenge for what her father was doing, instead of the like human experiment aspect of it. It did have like the MK Ultra sort of feeling to it, so if you are like a conspiracy theory fan, you might enjoy this one, but it just didn't delve into the topics that I wanted it to, so I ultimately ended up giving it a 3-star. So those are all of the KU horrors that I'm going to be reading for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below on anything that I talked about. If you don't have anything to say, leave some sort of ghost emoji down in the comments. If you are looking for more content from me, make sure you check out my Instagram and my podcast Instagram. You can also check out my podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. It is a horror podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you are looking forward to more videos from me in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.